Imagine stepping outside on a scorching summer day, the heat so intense it feels like a physical weight, and then you remember there's no air conditioning. No hum of a cooling unit, no blast of refrigerated air. Now stretch that reality across entire cities, across centuries, and you begin to glimpse a world where survival and comfort depended not on electricity, but on something far more elemental: the wind. Long before modern technology gave us climate control at the flip of a switch, ancient civilizations mastered the art of living in harmony with their environment, designing breathtaking structures that harnessed the breeze to transform searing heat into livable coolness. These weren't just buildings, they were elegantly engineered systems that turned the very air into a life-giving force, allowing societies to flourish in some of the most unforgiving landscapes on Earth. This is the story of wind-powered cities, a tale of human ingenuity written in stone, brick, and flowing air. From the desert heartlands of Persia to the vibrant stepwells of India, architects and builders developed ventilation towers known as windcatchers, badgirs, and malqafs, which acted as natural air conditioners long before the concept even had a name. These structures did more than just cool the air. They shaped the way people lived, worked, and connected with one another. They influenced trade routes, supported bustling markets, and even found their way into spiritual practices, becoming symbols of both practical wisdom and cultural identity. What's perhaps most astonishing is how these ancient innovations achieved a level of sustainability that we are only now, centuries later, striving to reclaim. As we journey through the secrets of these forgotten marvels, we'll uncover not just how they worked, but why they mattered, and why they still matter today. You'll see how the principles behind wind towers offer powerful lessons for our own time, as we face rising temperatures, energy crises, and the urgent need to rethink our relationship with the planet. This isn't just a history lesson, it's an invitation to rediscover a time when comfort was woven into the fabric of design, and the breeze was the greatest technology of all. So settle in and open your mind to the possibilities of the past, because what comes next might just change how you see the future. Picture the sprawling cities of ancient Egypt, where the sun beat down relentlessly on stone and sand. Here, architects didn't fight the climate, they learned its rhythms. They noticed how the Nile's breezes had a predictable flow, and they began designing homes with a central courtyard, a simple open space that acted as a thermal engine. Hot air would rise from this courtyard, pulling cooler air in through strategically placed openings on the ground floor. This created a gentle, constant draft that flushed out stifling heat and replaced it with fresh air. They also mastered the art of orientation, aligning entire streets and buildings to funnel the prevailing northerly winds directly into living spaces. It wasn't about brute force technology, it was about intelligent design, about working with the environment to create comfort. This wisdom wasn't confined to Egypt. In Mesopotamia, the builders of ziggurats and mud brick homes faced similar scorching temperatures. Their solution was to use thick walls made from the very earth they stood on. These walls had incredible thermal mass, meaning they would absorb the sun's heat slowly throughout the day, preventing it from penetrating indoors. Then, as the desert night grew cold, they would release that stored warmth, stabilizing the interior temperature. They complemented this with wind scoops, simple protruding structures on roofs that would catch the wind at a higher altitude and direct it down into the home's core. This was physics in its purest form, applied through observation and necessity, creating livable conditions without a single watt of electricity. What's truly remarkable is how this knowledge was accumulated and shared. There were no engineering textbooks or universities for this. Instead, it was a tradition passed down through generations of craftsmen and builders. A father would teach his son the precise angle to set a wall to maximize shade during the summer solstice. A community would share the best practices for digging underground rooms where the Earth's constant, cooler temperature provided a natural refuge from the heat. This was a deep cultural intelligence refined over centuries through trial and error. It was a collaborative effort to not just survive, but to thrive, turning hostile environments into centers of civilization and culture. This foundational work, this dawn of natural ventilation, was the crucial first step. It proved that human comfort was achievable through harmony with natural forces. The simple courtyard of an Egyptian home, the thick wall of a Mesopotamian house, these were the prototypes. They demonstrated the core principles, capturing airflow, leveraging thermal mass, and using evaporation. They laid the essential groundwork, proving the concept worked on a small scale. This success gave future engineers the confidence to think bigger, to be more ambitious. It set the stage for the next great leap, scaling these principles from individual buildings to entire urban landscapes, transforming these clever tweaks into the monumental wind towers that would soon define skylines across the ancient world. Building upon those foundational principles of courtyards and thermal mass, the ancient Persians elevated natural ventilation into an art form. In the heart of their vast empire, where the desert sun could push temperatures to unbearable extremes, they developed the badger, or windcatcher, a structure so ingeniously simple and effective it feels almost magical. Imagine a square tower rising from a flat rooftop, its sides open to the world but divided by internal vertical fins. These fins weren't just decorative, they were the key to its intelligence, designed to catch breezes from any direction. The side facing the prevailing wind would act as an intake, its fins channeling the airflow downward into a central shaft. But here's the truly brilliant part. The opposite side, now in the wind's shadow, would experience lower air pressure. This created a powerful suction effect, actively pulling the warm, stagnant air up and out of the living quarters below. It was a self-regulating system, a perpetual cycle of refreshment powered solely by the wind itself. The sophistication didn't stop there. Persian engineers discovered they could supercharge this cooling effect by introducing water. They often directed the incoming air from the windcatcher shaft over a small indoor pool or a channel of running water, a feature known as a qanat. As the dry desert air passed over this water surface, it would pick up moisture in a process called evaporative cooling. This isn't just about adding humidity. It's a fundamental physical principle where the energy required for evaporation is drawn from the surrounding air, causing its temperature to drop significantly. In some of the most advanced designs, porous clay jars filled with water were placed at the base of the shaft. The air would cool even further as it seeped through these moistened pots, delivering a genuinely chilled breeze into the home's central living area or house. This wasn't just air conditioning, it was climate control engineered with a deep understanding of physics and nature. Yet a badger was never just a machine. It was a statement, a symbol of prosperity and artistic sensibility woven into the skyline. The wealthier the family, the more elaborate and ornate their windcatcher would be. Master craftsmen adorned them with intricate patterns of turquoise and cobalt blue tiles, laid in geometric and floral motifs that shimmered against the desert sky. The brickwork itself was a masterpiece, arranged in dazzling arrays of zigzags and hexagons that demonstrated a command of geometry and form. This fusion of utility and beauty meant that the windcatcher was as much a part of the family's identity as it was a tool for survival. It announced their status to the world while serving as the literal heart of the home. the source of cool air around which daily life and social gatherings would revolve. This architectural marvel found its ultimate expression in cities like Yazd and Kashan, which emerged as living laboratories of desert adaptation. The skyline of Yazd, often called the City of Windcatchers, is a forest of these towers, each one a little different, tailored to the specific needs and winds of its location. They enabled these cities to become thriving oases of culture and commerce on the Silk Road, places where merchants and scholars could find respite and refreshment. In a climate where midday temperatures could easily soar past 100 degrees Fahrenheit, the interior of a home equipped with a badger could be a comfortable 20 degrees cooler, a life-saving difference achieved with zero energy consumption. It stands as a timeless testament to human ingenuity, proving that the greatest luxury isn't always about complexity, but about working in perfect, elegant harmony with the natural world. While the windcatcher found its most iconic form in Persia, its influence quickly spread across the entire Middle East, becoming a fundamental element of regional architecture that shaped not just individual homes but the very layout of cities. From the bustling trade hubs of Iraq to the coastal towns of the Arabian Peninsula, this technology was adapted and refined, creating a diverse family of ventilation towers that shared a common goal: mastering the climate. In the historic districts of Dubai and Bahrain, for instance, a distinct variation known as the barragel emerged. These towers were often integrated into a more complex environmental system. A typical home might feature a wind tower drawing air down into a central courtyard, which itself was designed as a cool, shaded retreat. From there, the now cooled air could be channeled into subterranean basements or sitting areas called sardabs, where the Earth's natural insulation provided a refuge from the midday sun. This created a beautiful, multi-level gradient of comfort, allowing families to move throughout their home and always find a space with the perfect temperature, all without a single drop of fuel being burned. This wasn't a set-it-and-forget-it system. It required a deep, intuitive understanding of the local environment, and the architecture reflected that intelligence. Many of these towers were equipped with ingenious manual controls. Adjustable wooden louvers or cloth screens could be opened, closed, or angled from inside the home, allowing residents to fine-tune the airflow based on the time of day, the season, or the wind's direction. During a sandstorm, every vent could be sealed tight to keep the interior pristine. On a still, humid night, certain openings might be adjusted to encourage a different kind of airflow, pulling cooler air from the shaded alleyways below. This level of control transformed the wind tower from a passive structure into an interactive tool, a partnership between the building and its inhabitants in the constant pursuit of comfort. It was a dynamic system that breathed with the rhythms of the day and the seasons. The true masterpiece of this architectural symphony, however, was the integration with water. Across Iran and into the Gulf, wind towers were frequently paired with qanats, those ancient underground aqueducts that brought fresh water from distant aquifers to the city. The genius move was to route the airflow from the wind tower directly over the surface of this flowing water within the qanat tunnel, or a connected underground reservoir known as an Anbar. As the dry desert air passed over the cool water, it would drop in temperature through evaporation, often by a significant margin, before being delivered into the living spaces. This combination was transformative. It didn't just move air, it conditioned it, adding a touch of moisture to prevent the air from being too dry while simultaneously chilling it. In public squares, large wind towers would often cool entire cisterns, ensuring a community's water supply stayed fresh and cool, demonstrating how this technology served both private luxury and public health. Beyond mere temperature control, these structures became the heart of social and community life. The coolest spot in any house, always located directly beneath the wind tower, was invariably the most desirable place to gather. This is where families would entertain guests, share meals, and escape the heat together. On a larger scale, wind towers were essential features of caravanserais, providing weary travelers and their animals with life-saving relief, and they cooled the crowded halls of bazaars, enabling commerce to continue even during the hottest hours. This shared reliance on natural ventilation fostered a cultural mindset that saw human comfort as something to be achieved in concert with the environment, not in opposition to it. The widespread adoption and celebration of these towers across diverse cultures highlight a unifying philosophy of living in harmony with nature, a profound lesson etched into the very skyline of the ancient Middle East. While Persia perfected the art of capturing the wind, ancient India achieved something equally profound by mastering the marriage of wind and water. Travel to the arid landscapes of Rajasthan and Gujarat, and you will find the remnants of these breathtaking feats of engineering monumental stepwells known as baolis. These were not mere water sources, they were ingeniously designed climate control systems, communal cooling hubs that served an entire village or town. Picture a vast inverted pyramid carved directly into the earth, with a symmetrical cascade of steps descending deep down to a dark, still reservoir of water. The architecture itself was a thermal miracle. As the sun heated the surface, the air within the stepwell's immense, shaded cavity remained significantly cooler, creating a dense body of cold air that settled at the very bottom. This temperature differential set up a powerful convective airflow. Hot surface air would rush down the steps to displace the cooler, denser air below, which would then be forced upward and out, often through cleverly designed channels into nearby buildings or pavilions. The cooling effect was supercharged by the vast surface area of the water reservoir itself. The constant process of evaporation from this water added moisture to the air flowing through the structure, a crucial comfort in extremely dry climates. This combination of convective airflow and evaporative cooling could drop the temperature by a staggering 20 degrees or more, transforming the stepwell into a natural refuge from the oppressive heat. But the genius of Indian passive cooling extended far beyond these grand public works. This same philosophy was miniaturized and integrated directly into domestic architecture. Homes featured jarakas, those beautiful, overhanging enclosed balconies that projected from upper stories. These weren't just for royal processions or privacy, they acted as sophisticated wind scoops. Their design captured higher velocity winds at elevation and funneled them downward into the living quarters below. Meanwhile, intricate perforated screens known as jollies adorned windows and walls. These stone or lattice screens served a dual purpose. They provided shade and privacy while also breaking strong gusts of wind into a multitude of gentle, diffused breezes, perfectly conditioning the air before it even entered a room. What makes these structures so remarkable, however, is that their function was inseparable from their spiritual and social significance. A baoli was never just a utilitarian pit. It was a sacred, subterranean temple. The steps were lined with ornate carvings of deities and mythological scenes, turning the descent for water into a spiritual journey. They were vibrant social centers where women would gather to collect water, share news, and find community respite from the heat. The coolest levels, often just above the waterline, became impromptu gathering halls for the entire village, places where merchants could escape the midday sun and elders could hold court in comfort. This holistic approach to design, where engineering, art, community, and spirituality were all woven together, created a profound cultural attachment to these spaces. They were a testament to a worldview that saw human comfort not as an isolated technical challenge, but as an integral part of a larger, interconnected system of life. India's legacy with Stepwells and Jollies offers a powerful counterpoint to the towering Windcatchers of Persia, yet both share a common thread of profound environmental intelligence. Where Persia reached for the sky to catch the wind, India dug deep into the earth to harness the coolness of water and soil. One solution was vertical and aerial, the other subterranean and aquatic, but both achieved the same goal of creating comfortable, sustainable living environments through a deep understanding of natural physics. This demonstrates that there is never just one single path to innovation. Different cultures with different resources and different spiritual beliefs can arrive at equally brilliant solutions to the universal human need for shelter and comfort. The Baoli stands as a monumental reminder that the most enduring and effective designs are those that serve not just the body, but also the community and the soul, seamlessly blending practical necessity with cultural meaning. To truly grasp the brilliance of these ancient structures, we need to peel back the layers and look at the fundamental physics that make them tick. It all comes down to a beautiful, self-regulating dance between pressure and temperature. Think of a windy day at the beach. You can feel the push of the air against your skin. That force is air pressure. Now, imagine a wind tower strategically placed to catch that moving air. The side of the tower facing directly into the wind experiences a buildup of this pressure. This is what scientists call a positive pressure zone. This force is powerful enough to literally push the fresh, cooler air from a higher altitude down through the central shaft of the tower and into the rooms below. It's like nature's own air duct system, installed and powered for free. But a push is only half the story. For the system to truly breathe, it also needs a pull. This is where the leeward side, the side sheltered from the direct wind, comes into play. On this side, the wind rushing over and around the tower creates a partial vacuum, an area of lower pressure. This negative pressure zone acts like a gentle vacuum cleaner, actively sucking the warm, stale, and used indoor air up and out of the building through its own set of vents. This elegant push-pull mechanism creates a continuous cycle of ventilation, constantly exchanging the interior air with fresh exterior air without a single moving part or any need for external energy. It's a perfect closed-loop system driven entirely by the wind's own kinetic energy. This process gets an extra boost from a phenomenon known as the stack effect or thermal buoyancy. You have certainly experienced this yourself. Heat rises. Inside a building, people, cooking, and sunlight generate warmth, making the indoor air hotter and therefore less dense than the cooler air outside. This lighter, hot air naturally wants to ascend, seeking an escape route upwards, typically through high vents or the tower itself. As it rises and exits, it creates a slight vacuum that pulls in the denser, cooler air from outside through lower openings, reinforcing the entire cycle. This means that even on a completely still day with no breeze at all, the temperature difference alone can maintain a gentle but constant airflow, ensuring the system never fully shuts down. The wind tower simply takes this natural principle and supercharges it. Ancient engineers didn't stop there. They found ways to actively condition the air, not just move it. By pairing the wind tower with an underground cellar or a tunnel connected to a qanat, they tapped into the Earth's remarkable thermal stability. Just a few feet below the surface, the ground maintains a relatively constant, cool temperature year-round, unaffected by the scorching heat of the day. As the wind-driven air was funneled through these subterranean passages, it would travel across the cool earth or over the surface of flowing water. This contact would literally wick the heat out of the air, chilling it significantly through conduction and evaporation before it ever reached the living quarters. This wasn't merely ventilation. This was prehistoric air conditioning, capable of dropping the temperature inside a home by 10 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit, a transformative difference that made desert life not just bearable but genuinely comfortable. This deep understanding of physics, harnessed through simple, brilliant design, stands as a timeless testament to human ingenuity. To walk through the ancient lanes of Yazd is to step into a living manual of desert survival, a city that didn't just exist in its environment but became an extension of it. Rising from the stark, sun-baked plains of central Iran, its skyline is instantly recognizable, not by skyscrapers of glass and steel, but by a forest of elegant mud brick towers, the iconic badgirs that have earned it the rightful title of the City of Windcatchers. These aren't isolated novelties, they are the defining feature of the urban landscape, hundreds of them punctuating the rooftops, each one a silent testament to a centuries-old conversation between architecture and wind. This is a place where the city itself breathes, a vast, interconnected organism designed for a single, vital purpose: to harness the invisible forces of nature to create a haven of coolness in one of the most inhospitable climates on Earth. The genius of Yazd extends far beyond the individual towers to the very fabric of its urban planning. The entire city is a masterclass in environmental design, a carefully engineered system where every element works in concert. The streets are deliberately narrow and winding, not by accident but by intention. These cramped alleyways create deep, continuous channels of shade, protecting pedestrians and building walls from the direct, punishing sun. But more importantly, they act as natural wind tunnels. The physics are simple yet brilliant. As a breeze enters the mouth of a narrow street, its speed increases dramatically, much like water flowing faster through a narrow pipe. The city planners of old understood this, designing these corridors to capture, accelerate, and precisely funnel those precious desert breezes directly toward the waiting openings of the wind catchers on the rooftops above. Furthermore, the buildings are densely packed together, their walls sharing shade and reducing the overall surface area exposed to solar radiation, which drastically cuts down the collective heat gain for the entire city. It's a holistic approach where the urban layout itself is the first and largest component of the cooling system. The wind catchers of Yazd are also marvels of adaptive engineering. While many are designed with openings facing the prevailing north wind, the city is also known for its sophisticated multi-directional towers. These structures feature vents on all four sides, a design that essentially turns them into all-season, all-weather ventilation machines. No matter which way the wind shifts, a common occurrence with the seasonal winds known as the 120-day wind, at least one set of openings is perfectly positioned to capture it. This ensured a near-constant supply of fresh air throughout the year, and the innovation didn't stop with the air itself. These towers were often constructed directly above underground water reservoirs known as Anbars. As the wind was drawn down the shaft, it would pass over the cool, still surface of the water stored below. This process would chill the air through evaporation, transforming the simple act of ventilation into genuine air conditioning, delivering a moist, cool breeze that was nothing short of miraculous in the arid desert heat. This unparalleled comfort was the key to Yazd's historical significance. Its reputation as a cool oasis in a scorching desert made it a crucial waypoint on the legendary Silk Road. For weary merchants and travelers who had spent weeks crossing barren, sun-bleached landscapes, arriving in Yazd was like stumbling upon an island of life. The caravanserais, the bustling bazaars, and the public buildings were all equipped with these cooling systems, offering respite and refreshment. This ability to provide comfort and safety turned the city into a thriving hub of commerce, culture, and intellectual exchange. It was a place where deals were made, ideas were shared, and civilizations connected, all made possible by the simple, elegant technology of the Windcatcher. The city's prosperity was quite literally built on air. Today, the legacy of this ingenuity is globally recognized. Yazd's historic core has been designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site, celebrated not just for its beauty, but for its profound demonstration of sustainable living. The enduring functionality of these centuries-old structures offers a powerful lesson for our modern world. They stand as permanent proof that resilience and comfort don't always require complex technology or massive energy consumption. Sometimes the most effective solutions are those that listen to the environment and work with it in perfect, graceful harmony. The city of Yazd is more than a museum. It is a living, breathing blueprint for a sustainable future, written in brick and wind. Beyond the undeniable gift of physical comfort, these ingenious wind towers delivered a profound and perhaps even more vital benefit. They were silent guardians of public health. In an era long before germ theory or modern medicine, the constant, gentle circulation of air provided by these structures acted as a powerful, passive defense against disease. Think of the environment inside a tightly sealed, stagnant home in a hot climate. It's a perfect breeding ground for trouble. Moisture from breathing and cooking would cling to walls and textiles, encouraging the relentless growth of mold and mildew. Dust, dander, and other airborne irritants would accumulate, lingering in still corners. For those suffering from asthma or other respiratory conditions, such an environment could be unbearable, even dangerous. The wind tower fundamentally changed this equation. By creating a continuous exchange of indoor and outdoor air, it tirelessly flushed out these contaminants, replacing stale, polluted air with fresh, clean breezes. This dramatically improved indoor air quality, reducing the incidence of respiratory infections, allergic reactions, and chronic breathing difficulties. In more humid coastal regions, the threat was different but equally pervasive. Here, the enemy wasn't just heat, but dampness. Persistent humidity could rot wooden beams, ruin stored grains and fabrics, and create a clammy, uncomfortable atmosphere that felt heavier than the air outside. Wind towers offered an elegant solution here as well. The steady airflow they generated worked to actively dry out interior spaces, wicking away excess moisture from walls, floors, and furnishings. This prevented the structural decay that could weaken buildings over time and, crucially, protected vital food supplies from mold and spoilage. By safeguarding both the integrity of the home and the security of the food stored within it, these ventilation systems played a direct role in preserving the economic stability and physical well-being of a household. A dry home was a durable home, and a dry pantry was a secure one. Conversely, in the parched, arid deserts where many wind towers were found, the challenge was the opposite. The air was too dry. Constant exposure to extremely dry air can lead to a host of minor but aggravating health issues, from cracked skin and chapped lips to irritated nasal passages and sore throats. This is where the integration with water features revealed another layer of its genius. In designs where the incoming air was directed over a courtyard pool or through an underground canal channel, the ventilation system did more than just cool the air, it gently humidified it. The breeze entering the living spaces carried with it a fine, invisible mist of water vapor, adding just enough moisture to the air to prevent the discomforts of extreme aridity. This provided a natural relief for the inhabitants, soothing respiratory tracts and keeping skin comfortable without any need for lotions or potions. It was a form of climate therapy built directly into the architecture, Some historians have even pointed to intriguing evidence suggesting that these benefits may have had a larger societal impact. When examining historical records from various regions, a pattern seems to emerge. Cities renowned for their advanced passive ventilation systems, such as Cairo with its intricate malqafs or Hyderabad with its own variations, often appear to have weathered epidemics with slightly better outcomes than less ventilated contemporaries. While it's impossible to draw a direct, singular line of causation, the logic is compelling. By constantly diluting the concentration of airborne pathogens inside homes and public buildings, these wind-driven systems would have reduced the rate of disease transmission. In an age where illnesses like tuberculosis and influenza swept through crowded urban centers with devastating effect, a building that could literally clear the air might have offered a significant, albeit unintentional, layer of community defense. This reveals a beautiful truth about this ancient technology. Its creators were focused on solving for comfort, but in doing so, they built a system that nurtured holistic well-being, protecting the body just as much as it pleased the senses. These towering structures of brick and breeze were far more than just clever climate control devices. They were powerful, silent symbols of status woven directly into the urban fabric. In the same way a luxury car or a sprawling estate might signify wealth today, the size, complexity, and sheer beauty of a windcatcher announced a family's position in the social hierarchy for all to see. The most affluent homes in cities like Yazd or Kashan were crowned with magnificent multi-story badgirs, their facades adorned with intricate patterns of glazed blue tiles and elaborate brickwork that shimmered like jewels against the desert sky. These were not merely functional, they were statements of prestige, demonstrating that the family within possessed not only the means to commission such artistry, but also the cultural sophistication to appreciate it. The wind tower became an extension of the family's identity, a permanent and public declaration of their success and taste. This architectural language of power was expressed with remarkable clarity in the internal layout of a traditional Persian home. The residence was typically divided into distinct zones: the Andaruni, the private inner quarters reserved for the immediate family, and the Bairuni, the outer areas designated for receiving guests and housing servants. The most sophisticated and tallest windcatcher was almost always positioned directly over the Andaruni, ensuring that the patriarch, his wife, and their children enjoyed the most potent and consistent flow of cooled air. This was the epicenter of comfort within the home. Meanwhile, smaller, simpler, and often single-directional wind scoops might serve the guest rooms and the servants' quarters. This wasn't necessarily an act of pure selfishness. It was a pragmatic system of resource allocation. The finest technology was directed to where it was deemed most essential, reflecting and reinforcing the established social order within the household's walls. The very airflow itself was stratified, a gentle but constant reminder of one's place. Beyond the private realm, wind towers played an equally vital role in the public sphere, acting as great social equalizers in the harsh climate. Caravanserais, the fortified inns that dotted the Silk Road, almost always featured a large, central wind tower. For a weary merchant who had spent weeks crossing sun-scorched deserts with his camels and goods, stepping into the cool, shaded interior of a caravanserai was nothing short of salvation. Here, the wind tower was not a symbol of personal wealth, but one of communal hospitality and economic necessity. It provided a safe, comfortable environment where traders from distant lands could rest, recover, and engage in commerce, fostering the cross-cultural exchange that built empires. Similarly, the covered bazaars utilized these ventilation systems to incredible effect. The long, vaulted corridors of the marketplace could become stiflingly hot, but strategically placed wind towers would draw the heat up and out, pulling fresh air through the entire length of the arcade. This made it possible for commerce to thrive throughout the day, protecting both the valuable goods for sale and the health of the merchants and customers who gathered there. This communal aspect finds a beautiful parallel in the Stepwells of India, known as baolis. While not wind towers in the strictest sense, they served an identical purpose, providing publicly accessible passive cooling. These were not private amenities for the elite. They were monumental public works, often commissioned by royalty or wealthy philanthropists as acts of civic charity. The entire community, from the highest caste to the lowest, would converge at the stepwell to collect water, but also to socialize, celebrate, and simply escape the oppressive heat in its deeply shaded, cool chambers. The wind tower and the stepwell, though different in form, shared a common social function. They created designated cool zones that became natural hubs for community interaction. They were places where news was exchanged, relationships were forged, and the social fabric of the city was continually rewoven. In this way, these ancient climate control systems transcended their practical function to become instruments of social cohesion, weaving together the lives of rich and poor alike in a shared pursuit of comfort. They stand as a powerful reminder that the greatest architectural innovations are those that serve not just the individual, but the entire community. The very essence of these wind towers was born from the earth itself. Builders didn't import exotic or processed materials. They looked to their immediate surroundings, creating a beautifully sustainable cycle of construction. Primary ingredient was almost always mud brick, a humble yet miraculous material made from a simple mixture of clay, sand, water, and sometimes straw. This combination was packed into wooden molds and left to bake in the relentless sun, resulting in bricks with an exceptionally high thermal mass. This is a crucial property. During the scorching daylight hours, these thick mud brick walls would act like a sponge, greedily absorbing the sun's radiant heat, preventing it from penetrating the interior living spaces. Then, as the desert night brought a dramatic temperature drop, the bricks would slowly release that stored warmth back into the home, creating a remarkably stable and comfortable indoor climate throughout the entire 24-hour cycle. It was a passive, self-regulating system built right into the very fabric of the walls, but a tower made solely of earth would be rigid and vulnerable. This is where wood entered the equation, introducing flexibility and intricate control. Master craftsmen used timber, often from resilient local trees like palm or poplar, to create the internal skeletal framework and, most importantly, the complex latticework screens and adjustable louvers that capped the tower's openings. These wooden elements were the precision instruments of the entire system. They could be carved into delicate geometric patterns, known as moshabak or jolly, which served a brilliant dual purpose. They provided shade and privacy while expertly breaking strong, dust-laden desert winds into a multitude of gentle, diffused breezes before the air ever traveled down the shaft. Furthermore, the natural flexibility of wood allowed the entire structure to sway and absorb energy, a critical feature in regions prone to earthquakes, helping these tall, slender towers stand defiantly for centuries. The knowledge required to build these marvels wasn't found in any written manual. It was a living tradition, passed meticulously from one generation of artisans to the next through a rigorous system of apprenticeships. A young boy would spend years alongside a master builder, a ustad, first learning to mix the mud to the perfect consistency, then gradually mastering the geometry required to align a tower's openings with the precise angle of the prevailing winds. This was astronomy and meteorology applied through intuition and inherited experience. The ustad would teach his pupils how to read the subtle signs in the landscape, how to feel the shift in the wind on their skin, and how to translate that deep environmental understanding into a perfectly angled shaft that would capture the breeze with maximum efficiency. This wasn't just construction, it was a sacred transfer of ecological wisdom, ensuring that each new wind tower was not merely a copy, but a tailored response to its specific location. This profound connection to the local environment resulted in structures of incredible resilience and a near-zero ecological footprint. Every component was sourced within a short distance, requiring no industrial processing or long-distance transportation. At the end of its incredibly long life, a wind tower wouldn't create waste. It would simply return to the earth from which it came. The mud bricks could be crushed, moistened, and recycled into new bricks, completing a full, sustainable cycle. This stands in stark contrast to today's energy-intensive construction industry. Furthermore, the massive weight and flexible design of these mud brick and timber structures gave them a surprising resistance to seismic activity. Their ability to withstand tremors that would topple rigid modern buildings is a testament to the sophisticated engineering principles embedded within what might appear to be simple, ancient techniques. These builders achieved a perfect harmony of form, function, and sustainability, creating a legacy of green architecture that we are only now, centuries later, striving to emulate. While the iconic Windcatcher found its purest expression in Persia, this brilliant concept of wind-driven ventilation was far from confined to a single region. It sparked a wave of architectural adaptation that rippled across North Africa and the Middle East, with each culture interpreting the core principle through the lens of its own unique climate, available materials, and social customs. This wasn't a story of simple copying. It was a process of intelligent reinvention where a universal idea was meticulously tailored to meet local demands. In the coastal cities of Egypt, for instance, the prevailing winds tell a different story than those of the inland Persian deserts. Here, the life-giving breezes predominantly blow from the north, sweeping off the Mediterranean Sea. Egyptian architects responded by developing the malqaf, a wind-catching structure that was often more compact and precisely oriented than its Persian cousin. These malqafs were strategically positioned to face directly into these northerly winds, acting like a finely tuned sail to capture every whisper of cool maritime air. But the Egyptian approach to comfort was rarely reliant on a single feature. The malqaf was almost always part of a sophisticated environmental ensemble. It was frequently combined with a deep, shaded courtyard at the heart of the home. As the malqaf funneled air downward, it would be directed into this courtyard, which often contained a central fountain or a shallow pool. This is where the magic of evaporative cooling took over. The dry, incoming air would pass over the water's surface, picking up moisture and shedding heat in the process, transforming it into a refreshing, cool breeze that would then circulate through the surrounding rooms. This integration of air and water movement created a holistic microclimate within the home, a serene oasis that stood in stark contrast to the dry heat outside. The design reflected a deep understanding of local conditions, prioritizing humidity and sea breezes in a way that was perfectly suited to the Egyptian context. Travel further west to Morocco, and you encounter another stunning variation on the theme, the mashrabiyah. This is perhaps one of the most visually distinctive elements of Islamic architecture, an ornate screen crafted from turned wood that projects from an upper story of a building. While breathtakingly beautiful, its design is intensely pragmatic. The intricate latticework of the mashrabiyah serves multiple critical functions simultaneously. Firstly, it provides essential privacy for the inhabitants, a core value in Islamic culture, allowing those inside to look out without being seen from the street below. Secondly, it offers deep shade, breaking the harsh glare of the sun and reducing solar heat gain on the interior. but its third function is what connects it directly to our story of wind. It acts as a superb air conditioner. The complex geometry of the mashrabiya's openings is designed to expertly manage airflow. As wind currents hit the screen, they are fractured into dozens of smaller, gentler, and more diffused streams. This process not only slows the wind down to a pleasant pace, but also increases its surface area, which enhances its cooling effect as it enters the room. Often, these projecting boxes were used to store porous clay water jars. The slight breeze passing through the latticework would be cooled further as it evaporated moisture from the jars, delivering a naturally chilled and humidified air current into the living space. The mashrabiya is a masterpiece of multifunctional design, where art, privacy, shade, and climate control are woven together into a single, elegant architectural feature. This incredible diversity of forms, from the towering badgirs of Iran to the directed malqafs of Egypt and the artistic mashrabiyas of Morocco, highlights a profound truth about human innovation. It demonstrates a shared understanding of fundamental physical principles, but also a remarkable capacity for localization. Communities did not just adopt an idea, they dissected it, understood its core mechanics, and then reassembled it using their own materials, aesthetics, and in direct response to their specific environmental challenges. The exchange of goods along vast trade networks like the Silk Road also meant an exchange of knowledge. Merchants and travelers would have carried stories of the cooling towers they saw in Persia back to North Africa, and vice versa, creating a rich cross-pollination of architectural ideas that spanned continents. This global conversation, happening over centuries, resulted in a family of related but distinct solutions, all united by a common goal: to live in comfort and harmony with the natural world, using nothing but the wind itself. Yet the true genius of this pairing was revealed in the public water reservoirs known as Anbars, which became the beating heart of many Persian desert communities. These were not simple wells, they were massive, domed underground chambers designed to store cold drinking water for an entire neighborhood or even a whole city. To access the water, people would descend a flight of steps into the surprisingly cool depths of the structure. But the masterstroke was the construction of windcatchers directly atop these reservoirs. These towers served a dual, critical purpose. Firstly, the constant airflow they created across the surface of the stored water dramatically slowed evaporation, a precious conservation measure in a land where every drop was invaluable. Secondly, and just as importantly, this ventilation actively cooled the water itself, acting like a massive, passive refrigerator that kept the community's supply fresh and potable for months on end. The Anbar with its windcatchers was a civic landmark, a symbol of shared resources and ingenious public engineering that everyone relied upon. The relationship between these two systems was so deeply intertwined that it even extended to the maintenance and health of the qanats themselves. These underground tunnels, while miraculous, required constant care. Workers known as muqannis would periodically need to descend into the pitch-black, confined passages to clear blockages of silt and debris, a dangerous and suffocating job. Here, the wind towers offered an unexpected lifeline. In some sophisticated designs, ventilation shafts were constructed specifically to channel fresh air from the surface down into the qanat tunnels. This airflow was vital. It prevented the buildup of dangerous, stale air and harmful gases that could overwhelm a maintenance worker, while also helping to keep the tunnels dry and structurally sound. This thoughtful integration demonstrates a holistic philosophy where every element of the infrastructure was considered, and where the well-being of the human caretakers was valued as highly as the performance of the system itself. This symbiotic partnership between wind and water represents one of history's most elegant examples of integrated resource management. It wasn't a series of separate solutions for separate problems, a way to move water here, a way to move air there. Instead, it was a unified, closed-loop system where each element enhanced and supported the other. The wind cooled and preserved the water, while the water cooled and humidified the air. This efficiency created a powerful positive feedback loop that allowed urban centers to achieve a level of resilience and comfort that would have been utterly impossible otherwise. In environments defined by their scarcity, these civilizations didn't just eke out an existence, they engineered abundance. They created oases of coolness and vitality that supported not just survival, but thriving cultures, bustling economies, and rich social lives, all built upon the foundational partnership of two simple, natural elements, the air above and the water below. This meticulous orchestration of urban comfort was no happy accident. It was the result of a deep, generational wisdom applied to city planning on a grand scale. The builders of these ancient cities approached their work like master conductors, carefully arranging every element of the urban landscape to work in symphonic harmony with the natural world. They understood that a single wind tower, no matter how brilliantly designed, could only do so much on its own. Its true power was unlocked when it became part of an integrated system, where the very streets and buildings around it were engineered to enhance its performance. This holistic vision transformed entire cities into climate-responsive organisms, where the architecture and the environment were in constant, graceful dialogue, each informing and improving the other. Consider the layout of a city like Yazd, where the streets themselves were designed as precision instruments for managing airflow. Those narrow, winding alleyways we see today weren't just charming historical artifacts, they were deliberate technological features. By making the streets exceptionally narrow, architects created what we would now call a venturi effect. As wind enters a constricted space, its velocity increases dramatically, much like water flowing faster through a narrow pipe. These urban canyons acted as natural wind tunnels, accelerating gentle breezes into powerful, directed currents that could then be captured by the wind towers lining the rooftops. Furthermore, the intentional winding and curving of these pathways served another clever purpose. It provided shade throughout the day. The high, irregular walls ensured that even at noon, a significant portion of the street remained in shadow, creating cool air that would sink and flow along the ground, adding another layer to the complex thermal dance of the city. The placement of every structure was a calculated decision rooted in collective environmental observation. Buildings were clustered closely together not merely to save space, but to provide mutual shading and thermal mass. A shared wall between two houses absorbs less heat than two separate, sun-exposed walls, drastically reducing the overall heat load of the entire block. This dense urban fabric created a collective cooling effect, where each building helped to moderate the temperature of its neighbors. Rooftops were always kept clear and flat, a uniform landscape designed to offer an unobstructed path for the wind. This ensured that every wind catcher rising from this flat plane could capture airflow at its maximum velocity without being deflected or blocked by neighboring structures. It was a shared understanding that the city's comfort was a communal project where individual buildings contributed to the well-being of the whole. Beyond the street grid, urban planners displayed a sophisticated understanding of microclimates and seasonal patterns. They knew that wind directions were not constant, they shifted with the seasons. In Persia, the vital cooling winds of summer typically blew from the north, while winter brought winds from the south. This knowledge was directly encoded into the architecture. Wind towers were strategically oriented with their main openings facing north to capture those precious summer breezes, while some designs incorporated smaller, secondary openings on other sides to be used during different seasons or wind conditions. This allowed residents to manage their indoor climate year-round, simply by opening and closing different internal vents. The city's very orientation on the landscape was also a critical factor. Planners preferentially sited settlements on elevated ground, such as the slopes of hills or the tops of plateaus. Elevation provided two key advantages: access to stronger, more consistent winds that were less disturbed by ground-level obstacles, and exposure to slightly cooler temperatures than the heated air pooling in valleys below. This profound intelligence embedded in the urban fabric created a self-regulating environment that required no external power and minimal maintenance. The city itself became a low-tech, high-efficiency climate control system. The result was an extraordinary resilience and quality of life that allowed these communities to not just survive, but to truly flourish in some of the most challenging environments on Earth. They achieved a level of sustainable comfort that modern cities, with all their technology and energy consumption, are still struggling to replicate. This ancient approach to urban planning offers a powerful lesson in seeing the city not as a collection of isolated buildings, but as a single, interconnected ecosystem, a lesson that is feeling more urgent and relevant with each passing year. Yet for all their elegance and proven effectiveness, the reign of these silent, wind-powered giants could not last forever. A profound shift was on the horizon, one driven by steam, steel, and a newfound obsession with speed and control. The dawn of the Industrial Revolution introduced a powerful new philosophy: that humanity could engineer its own environment independent of nature's whims. The invention of the mechanical air conditioner in 1902 by Willis Carrier wasn't just a new gadget. It was a declaration of independence from the seasons themselves. Here was a technology that promised instantaneous, precise, and reliable cooling at the mere flip of a switch. It didn't require careful alignment with the wind or a deep understanding of local microclimates. It offered a one-size-fits-all solution that could be installed anywhere, from the skyscrapers of New York to the bungalows of Bombay, and it delivered a level of icy, dehumidified coolness that a passive wind tower could never match. The allure was irresistible, symbolizing a sleek, modern, and powerful future. This technological revolution was powerfully reinforced by a sweeping cultural and political shift, the era of colonialism and intense globalization. Western nations, armed with their new industrial marvels, projected their technologies as symbols of ultimate progress and superiority. Traditional methods, no matter how sophisticated, were increasingly framed as primitive, outdated, and relics of a past that needed to be overcome. In cities across the Middle East and Asia, the educated elite, eager to align themselves with this wave of modernity, began to view the ancient badgirs and malqafs on their rooftops not as marvels of engineering, but as embarrassing reminders of a bygone era. Replacing them with a humming, shiny air conditioning unit became a potent status symbol, a clear signal that one was moving forward, not looking back. This cultural pressure to adopt Western technology led to a rapid devaluation of indigenous knowledge, and the master builders who once held the secrets of wind tower construction found themselves with no one to teach, their ancient craft suddenly rendered obsolete. The very shape of cities themselves began to work against these ancient cooling systems. The traditional urban layouts of places like Yazd or Cairo, with their narrow, shaded alleys and low-rise, densely packed buildings, were perfectly engineered for passive ventilation. But 20th century urbanization demanded a different model, one of vertical growth and maximum density. Soaring concrete high-rises replaced sprawling mud brick compounds, completely altering the wind patterns at street level and blocking the airflow that wind towers depended on. Vast expanses of asphalt and concrete paving absorbed the sun's heat by day and radiated it back out at night, creating the urban heat island effect, which made entire cities several degrees hotter than the surrounding countryside. In this new man-made climate, the gentle breath of a wind tower seemed utterly overwhelmed, a whisper trying to be heard over a roar. The city itself had become its own thermal enemy, and the solution, it seemed, could only be fought with more powerful machines. The consequence of this monumental shift was a quiet but devastating loss. As the old masters passed away, they took their irreplaceable knowledge with them. The precise geometric calculations for aligning a tower, the specific mortar mixtures that could withstand centuries of sun and wind, the intuitive understanding of local air currents, this vast library of empirical science, refined over millennia, began to vanish within a single generation. Many magnificent wind towers were simply boarded up, left to crumble under the elements, or outright demolished to make way for new construction. This wasn't just the loss of an architectural feature, it was the severing of a deep cultural connection to the environment. People became increasingly disconnected from the natural rhythms of wind and season, retreating into sealed boxes where climate was manufactured, not harnessed. The trade-off for this incredible convenience was a steep rise in energy consumption and a growing reliance on fragile centralized power grids, locking societies into a cycle of demand that we are still struggling to break today. Just when it seemed these ancient marvels were destined to be forgotten relics, a powerful shift began to take root. As the environmental and energy costs of 20th century architecture became impossible to ignore, a new generation of designers started looking backward for inspiration, sparking a remarkable renaissance of wind tower technology. This isn't about mere historical recreation. It's a sophisticated fusion of timeless principles with 21st century innovation, creating a powerful new language of sustainable design. The movement is driven by a simple, urgent realization that our current reliance on energy-intensive mechanical cooling is fundamentally unsustainable, and that the answers we desperately need may have been blowing in the wind all along. This modern revival finds its most compelling expression in groundbreaking projects around the world. At the Pearl Academy of Fashion in Jaipur, India, architects crafted a stunning contemporary building that breathes. Instead of sealing itself off from the desert climate, the structure embraces it, featuring a central courtyard topped by a massive, funnel-like wind tower. This modern badger acts as a natural lung for the entire building, drawing hot air up and out while pulling cooler air in through the lower levels. The design eliminates the need for air conditioning in most of the academic spaces, creating a comfortable learning environment while slashing energy consumption and operational costs. It stands as a powerful, working proof that ancient wisdom can be seamlessly integrated into a modern educational facility, teaching students not just about design, but about sustainability in action. Across the Arabian Peninsula, the ambitious Masdar City project in Abu Dhabi takes this concept even further, aiming to be one of the world's first zero-carbon urban centers. Here, the ancient wind tower has been reborn as a high-tech civic monument. A colossal 45-meter-tall modern barragel rises from the central plaza, its design informed by computational fluid dynamics and centuries of regional tradition. But this is no static replica. It's a smart, responsive system, equipped with sensors that monitor wind speed, direction, and temperature. Its louvers automatically adjust to optimize airflow throughout the surrounding pedestrian streets and markets. This intelligent integration creates a pleasant microclimate for residents and visitors, demonstrating how historical principles can be supercharged with modern technology to tackle the scale of an entire city. The potential applications for this rediscovered technology extend far beyond schools and planned communities, reaching into some of the most energy-intensive sectors of our modern world. Research institutions and forward-thinking engineering firms are now actively studying these passive systems for use in large office complexes, industrial warehouses, and even data centers, facilities where cooling demands account for a staggering portion of their total energy consumption. The concept is revolutionary yet beautifully simple. By using wind-driven ventilation to handle a significant portion of the baseline cooling load, even in temperate climates, buildings can drastically reduce their reliance on power-hungry compressors and chillers. This approach represents a fundamental shift in mindset, from fighting the environment with brute mechanical force to working in concert with it through intelligent, responsive design. This growing fascination with wind towers is part of a much broader architectural awakening known as biophilic and climate-responsive design. This philosophy argues that the healthiest, most efficient, and most inspiring buildings are those that reconnect us to the natural world rather than isolating us from it. It's about creating structures that respond dynamically to their local climate, using passive strategies for heating, cooling, and lighting before ever switching on a machine. The wind tower is a perfect embodiment of this ethos. It doesn't just reduce energy bills, it re-establishes a tangible, sensory connection between the inhabitant and their environment. You can feel the shift in the air, hear the whisper of the wind moving through the building, and experience the changing seasons in a deeply personal way. This reconnection offers a profound psychological benefit that goes far beyond simple thermodynamics, creating spaces that are not only efficient but also inherently more human and restorative. Looking at the challenges we face today, rising global temperatures, soaring energy demands, and the urgent need to cut carbon emissions, it feels like we are staring into an abyss of complexity. Yet the blueprint for a solution has been weathering the storms of time for centuries, etched into the very skyline of ancient desert cities. The core principles that made wind towers so effective, harnessing natural forces, relying on local materials, and designing in harmony with the specific climate, are not historical curiosities. They are a masterclass in resilience, offering a powerful and surprisingly practical roadmap for building the sustainable cities of the future. In an era of climate uncertainty, this ancient wisdom teaches us that resilience isn't about building higher walls against nature, but about weaving our structures and communities into the natural world's existing patterns, creating urban environments that are not just efficient, but inherently adaptable and strong. Consider the staggering energy burden we currently shoulder for the sake of comfort. Air conditioning and electric fan use already accounts for nearly 10% of all global electricity consumption, a figure that is projected to triple by 2050 as developing nations rightly seek relief from increasing heat. This creates a vicious cycle. We burn fossil fuels to power our air conditioners, which releases greenhouse gases that warm the planet, which in turn increases our demand for even more cooling. It is an unsustainable feedback loop that strains our power grids and accelerates the climate crisis. Passive cooling strategies inspired by wind towers offer a way to break this cycle. By designing buildings that naturally stay cool through strategic orientation, intelligent ventilation, and thermal mass, we can dramatically reduce, or in some climates even eliminate, the need for mechanical cooling for large portions of the year. This isn't about abandoning air conditioning entirely, but about re-establishing it as a supplemental system for extreme conditions, rather than the default solution for every single day. The potential for innovation here is immense and goes far beyond simply recreating traditional towers. Modern architects are already reinterpreting these principles in stunningly creative ways. Imagine new high-rise buildings clad in ventilated facades, double skin walls that act like a giant, building-sized wind catcher, where the sun heats the air in the cavity, causing it to rise and draw cooler air from below in a continuous, energy-free cycle. Picture rooftop wind turbines, not just for generating electricity, but specifically designed to capture and funnel prevailing breezes down into central atriums, acting as a modern, multi-functional badger. We can even integrate Earth-air heat exchangers, networks of underground pipes that use the Earth's constant temperature to pre-cool incoming air before it enters a building, a high-tech echo of the ancient Qanat system. These are not fantasies, they are viable technologies that represent the evolution of ancient ideas through a modern lens. Beyond individual buildings, these strategies hold the key to combating the urban heat island effect, a phenomenon where cities become significantly hotter than their surrounding rural areas due to vast expanses of heat-absorbing asphalt and concrete. By incorporating more green spaces, water features, and thoughtfully designed wind corridors that channel cool air from parks and rivers into urban cores, we can lower the ambient temperature of entire city blocks. This approach to city-scale planning, directly inspired by the narrow, shade-producing alleyways of Yazd, reduces the cooling load for every single structure within that area, creating a collective benefit that is far greater than the sum of its parts. It transforms the city from a heat trap into a living, breathing ecosystem that actively moderates its own climate. Perhaps the most profound lesson these ancient structures offer is one of social equity and community-centric design. In the past, the cooling provided by a public wind tower in a caravanserai or a communal stepwell was a shared resource, available to travelers, merchants, and residents alike. This stands in stark contrast to today's reality, where air conditioning is often a marker of privilege. Those who can afford the units and the expensive electricity to run them get to stay cool, while the most vulnerable populations suffer through dangerous heat waves. By prioritizing passive, architectural comfort that is baked into the very design of our neighborhoods through shaded public plazas, cool retrofits for social housing, and community cooling centers inspired by the Baoli, we can build cities that are not only more sustainable but also more just. This fosters social cohesion, ensuring that resilience and comfort are universal rights, not private commodities. This ancient ingenuity challenges us to see progress not as a radical break from the past, but as a thoughtful evolution, reminding us that the most elegant solutions are often the simplest ones, waiting for us to rediscover them on the breeze. Yet this incredible convenience comes at a steep and often hidden cost. The energy required to power all those compressors and fans is staggering. Air conditioning currently accounts for nearly 10% of all global electricity consumption, a figure that is projected to triple by the middle of this century. This creates a vicious feedback loop. We burn fossil fuels to run our air conditioners, which releases greenhouse gases that warm the planet, which in turn increases the demand for even more cooling. Beyond the energy drain, most conventional AC units rely on chemical refrigerants that, if they leak, can be thousands of times more potent than carbon dioxide at trapping heat in the atmosphere. The modern sealed building, reliant on this system, can also become a trap for indoor pollutants. Without a constant supply of fresh air, volatile organic compounds from paints, furnishings, and cleaning products can accumulate, and recirculated air can spread airborne viruses, leading to what health experts often call sick building syndrome. Contrast this with the elegant operation of a wind tower, a system that consumes zero operational energy. Its power source is the wind itself, a completely renewable and constant natural force. While it cannot deliver the Arctic blast of a modern AC unit, its cooling effect is often more than sufficient for human comfort in dry climates. capable of lowering indoor temperatures by 10 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit. This difference is not about enduring less comfort, but about redefining what comfort means, opting for a fresh, gently moving breeze over stagnant, artificially chilled air. The wind tower provides ventilation as a fundamental part of its function, continuously flushing out stale air, moisture, and indoor pollutants and replacing them with fresh outdoor air. This creates a healthier indoor environment and eliminates the need for separate energy-consuming air purifiers or ventilators. The maintenance is also profoundly simple. There are no complex mechanical parts to break down, no filters to replace monthly, just the enduring structure itself, often standing for centuries with minimal intervention. The most promising path forward may not be an all-or-nothing choice, but an intelligent fusion of both worlds. Imagine a hybrid system where a building is primarily cooled by a modernized, computer-optimized windcatcher that handles ventilation and baseline cooling for the majority of the year. Then, only during the most extreme heat waves or on completely windless, humid days, a small, highly efficient mechanical AC unit would kick in to provide a supplemental boost. Studies have shown that such complementary approaches can slash a building's total cooling energy demand by 50% or more. This hybrid model leverages the respective strengths of each technology, the zero-energy resilience of the ancient system, and the precise, powerful backup of the modern one. It's a practical, realistic approach that acknowledges the realities of modern comfort expectations while making a monumental leap toward sustainability. This comparison fundamentally reframes our understanding of technological progress. It challenges the linear assumption that newer always means better, revealing that older technologies can be profoundly sophisticated in their holistic efficiency. The wind tower isn't obsolete. Its time has simply come again, offering a critical key to unlocking a more resilient and sustainable future. It proves that true innovation isn't always about inventing something entirely new, but sometimes about rediscovering and refining the brilliant solutions that are already written in the wind and the stone. Amidst the soaring glass and steel of modern Dubai, a district of low-lying, sand-colored buildings offers a powerful and poignant glimpse into the city's humble origins. This is the Al-Fahidi historical neighborhood, often still called by its old name, Bastakia. Here, standing in quiet defiance of the surrounding skyscrapers, is a collection of meticulously restored wind towers, or barragul, that tell a story of survival and ingenuity long before the discovery of oil transformed the region. Walking through its narrow lanes, you are transported to the late 19th century, a time when Persian merchants, drawn by Dubai's tax-free trading policies, settled here and brought with them the architectural wisdom of their homeland. They built these structures not as aesthetic choices, but as essential life support systems, the only technology capable of making the Gulf's brutal summer heat survivable. The barragul of Bastakia are instantly recognizable, their square, four-sided towers rising like sentinels above the flat rooftops. This specific design was a masterstroke of practical adaptation. Unlike the directional wind catchers of Persia that were often aligned with specific seasonal winds, the four openings design was perfectly suited to the more variable wind patterns of the coastal Gulf. No matter which way the breeze decided to shift, be it a northwesterly shamal or a gentle easterly, at least one opening was perfectly positioned to capture it. The internal fins would then channel that air downward into the heart of the home, while the other openings simultaneously created the suction needed to expel the stifling indoor air. It was a democratization of the wind, ensuring that no gust from any direction went to waste. For decades, however, this brilliant legacy was nearly lost. As Dubai raced toward its hyper-modern future in the mid-20th century, the Bastakia Quarter fell into disrepair, its traditional buildings seen by many as obsolete relics standing in the path of progress. By the 1990s, the area was slated for demolition to make way for new commercial development. But a wave of foresighted conservationists and heritage advocates recognized the profound historical value embedded in these walls and launched a passionate campaign for their preservation. Their efforts culminated in an ambitious restoration project that was less about creating a frozen museum piece and more about reviving a living, breathing neighborhood. The restoration teams faced a delicate task, using traditional materials like coral stone, gypsum, and palm wood to repair the structures, all while carefully integrating modern necessities like electrical wiring and plumbing in a way that remained invisible and did not compromise the building's passive cooling integrity. Today, the district thrives as a vibrant cultural center, and the true magic lies in experiencing these wind towers firsthand. Step inside one of the converted museums or heritage homes on a hot day, and the effect is immediately palpable. The air is noticeably cooler and carries a gentle, continuous movement, a soft sigh of wind that stands in stark contrast to the stagnant oven-like heat outside. You can stand directly beneath the shaft of a barragel and feel the steady stream of air flowing down around you, a natural air conditioning system that requires no explanation. This tangible sensory experience does what no textbook ever could. It makes the genius of the past immediately understandable. Visitors leave not just with a historical fact, but with a felt sense of awe for the comfort that can be achieved through harmony with nature. The Bastakia Quarter now serves a dual purpose. It is, without question, a vital repository of cultural memory, preserving the architectural DNA of old Dubai and honoring the Persian influences that helped shape the city. But perhaps more importantly, it acts as a living laboratory for sustainable design. In a metropolis now defined by its colossal energy consumption for cooling, these humble towers stand as a quiet, powerful rebuke and an inspiring alternative. They are a permanent, open-air exhibition that challenges visitors to reconsider what is truly modern. Is it the relentless consumption of energy to create artificial environments, or is it the elegant application of timeless physics to create comfort without cost? The barragel of Dubai don't just preserve the past, they whisper a compelling question about our future. This seamless fusion of the physical and the spiritual found perhaps its most profound expression in the sacred spaces of the ancient world. Step inside a grand Persian mosque on a sweltering afternoon, and you would have encountered an atmosphere of remarkable serenity, a cool tranquility that was no accidental blessing. Here, the badger was not merely an architectural feature, it was an instrument of devotion. Large prayer halls, often crowded with worshippers, could easily become stifling ovens, the collective body heat and stuffy air creating a distraction that pulled focus away from prayer and contemplation. The wind towers integrated into these mosques solved this with elegant efficiency. They would draw the hot, stagnant air up and out of the massive domed chambers, while simultaneously pulling in cooler, fresher air from above. This created a continuous, gentle circulation that maintained a comfortable environment, allowing hundreds of worshippers to focus their entire being on spiritual connection, free from the physical discomfort of the oppressive heat outside. It was a practical solution in service of a higher purpose, ensuring that the path to the divine was as unobstructed as possible. This relationship between ventilation and the sacred took a different, yet equally beautiful, form in the Stepwells of India. These cavernous baolis were never just water sources, they were subterranean temples, places of pilgrimage, meditation, and ritual purification. The act of descending the long, symmetrical steps was itself a spiritual journey, moving from the blistering heat and noise of the world above into a progressively cooler, quieter, and darker realm. The sophisticated passive cooling system, which created a natural downdraft of chilled air, was essential to this transformative experience. The profound coolness at the bottom of the well wasn't just a physical relief, it was a sensory representation of spiritual respite. For a devotee preparing for a ritual bath or a seeker deep in meditation, this environmentally engineered comfort was a vital part of the ceremony. It allowed them to remain in a state of peaceful focus for extended periods, making the architecture an active participant in the rituals it housed, facilitating a deeper, more immersive connection to the divine. Beyond their undeniable practical function, these structures carried a powerful symbolic weight that resonated with the core tenets of the faiths they served. The very operation of a wind tower drawing air downward to nourish the body and then expelling it upward, purified and transformed, mirrored profound metaphysical concepts found in many spiritual traditions. In Islamic and Persian mystical thought, this upward flow of air could symbolize the ascent of the soul, the rising of prayers towards heaven, or the aspiration for spiritual purification and renewal with each breath. The wind tower became a physical metaphor for divine breath, a constant, gentle reminder of the spirit that animates all life. In the Hindu context, the descent into the cool, watery depths of a stepwell represented a journey inward, a return to the womb of the earth, and a symbolic cleansing of not just the body but the soul. The architecture itself taught spiritual lessons, its every function echoing a deeper truth about the universe and humanity's place within it. This holistic approach to sacred architecture reveals a world view where the divine was not separate from the natural world, but intimately woven into its very fabric. Using the wind, the water, and the earth's own thermal mass to condition a space was an act of reverence. It was a way of honoring God's creation by intelligently harnessing the gifts it provided. There was no dichotomy between the spiritual and the sustainable. They were one and the same. A building that cooled itself with the breeze was a building in alignment with cosmic rhythms, a physical manifestation of living in harmony with the natural order believed to be ordained by the divine. This created sacred spaces that nurtured the entirety of the human experience. They comforted the physical body with cool air and shade. They quieted the mind by removing sensory distractions, and they elevated the soul through their symbolic resonance and beauty. They understood that to care for the body was to create the conditions for the spirit to flourish. The brilliant principles of wind-driven cooling were far too effective to remain a regional secret, sparking a wave of architectural inspiration that rippled across continents, proving that the human need for comfort is a powerful, universal driver of innovation. While the iconic forms of Persian badgirs and Egyptian malqafs are the most celebrated, the core idea of harnessing air movement for cooling was independently discovered and ingeniously adapted in cultures that had no direct contact with the Middle East. This parallel development reveals a profound truth. When faced with similar environmental challenges, human ingenuity often arrives at elegantly similar solutions, a phenomenon known as convergent evolution in design. From the sun-drenched plains of Spain to the intricate courtyards of Beijing and the arid landscapes of the American Southwest, we find a shared architectural language of comfort, spoken in different dialects but understood by all. In Spain, the legacy of nearly 8 centuries of Islamic rule, known as Al-Andalus, left an indelible mark on the landscape, one that extended far beyond language and cuisine into the very bricks and mortar of its buildings. As Muslim influence retreated southward, it bequeathed to southern Spain a magnificent architectural heritage that included its own distinct version of the wind tower, the Torre de Viento, or Tower of the Wind. These structures, gracing the courtyards of grand homes and palaces in regions like Andalusia, were clear descendants of the Persian badger but refined for a Mediterranean climate. Spanish architects adapted the design, often making these towers more ornamental and integrating them seamlessly with the central courtyard, or patio, which was the heart of Spanish domestic life. Here, the tower would work in concert with water features like fountains and lush vegetation, using evaporative cooling to temper the hot, dry summers. The Alhambra Palace in Granada stands as the ultimate testament to this fusion, where the gentle sound of trickling water and the constant whisper of air moving through cleverly designed chambers create a microclimate of serene coolness, demonstrating how an idea born in the desert was perfectly tailored to a new environment. On the other side of the world, ancient Chinese architects developed a completely distinct yet philosophically aligned approach to passive climate control. The traditional Sihayuan homes of Beijing, with their symmetrical layout enclosing a secluded courtyard, employed a sophisticated understanding of airflow without constructing prominent external towers. Instead, they used hollow walls that acted as thermal chimneys and subtle rooftop ventilators, often disguised within the ornate rooflines. These features worked on the same stack effect principle, drawing hot air up and out while pulling cooler air from the shaded courtyard through the living spaces. The entire design was deeply influenced by Feng Shui principles, which emphasized the harmonious flow of Qi, or life energy, a concept that seamlessly dovetailed with the physical flow of air. This independent development of wind-capturing techniques in a culture with minimal historical contact with Persia highlights the universality of the underlying physics and the shared human desire to live in balance with the natural world. Perhaps the most striking example of convergent design is found not across an ocean, but in the American Southwest. Here, the Pueblo peoples, including the Hopi and Zuni, engineered their own breathtakingly effective passive cooling systems using the most local of materials, adobe. Their iconic multi-story dwellings, built directly into cliff faces or standing proudly on the mesa tops, were marvels of environmental engineering. The massive adobe walls provided immense thermal mass, absorbing the intense desert heat by day and slowly releasing it during the cold nights. But their ingenuity extended to ventilation. They designed carefully placed openings and rooftop access points that capitalized on prevailing winds and temperature differentials. The strategic alignment of doors and windows created cross-ventilation, while elevated rooms allowed hot air to rise and escape, pulling cooler air in from below. This sophisticated understanding allowed them to thrive in an extreme climate for centuries, developing a solution that was functionally identical to wind towers in its effect, yet born from an entirely separate cultural and architectural tradition. This global tapestry of adaptive design was woven together by the relentless movement of people and ideas across vast distances. The Silk Road was not just a conduit for silk and spices, it was a highway for knowledge. Persian merchants and travelers would have carried tales of their sky-cooled cities into Central Asia and beyond. Likewise, the extensive trade routes across the Indian Ocean and the Sahara Desert facilitated a slow but steady cross-pollination of architectural concepts. Conquest, too, played a complex role. While often destructive, the expansion of empires frequently led to the blending of technologies, as victorious armies encountered and adopted the superior building techniques of the cultures they subdued. This was not a simple story of one culture inventing and others copying. It was a dynamic, centuries-long conversation. A concept might originate in Persia, be adapted by builders in North Africa, influence designs in Moorish Spain, and eventually inform colonial architecture in the New World, each step adding a new layer of refinement and local context. Recognizing this interconnected heritage fundamentally changes how we view these historical structures. They are not isolated curiosities or quaint examples of vernacular architecture. They are individual chapters in a single, global story of human resilience. This shared narrative of innovation reminds us that the challenge of staying cool under a blazing sun is a universal human experience, one that has sparked creativity and collaboration across cultural and geographic divides for millennia. It reveals a pre-industrial world that was far more connected and intellectually fertile than we often assume, where a good idea, much like the wind itself, knew no borders. This perspective allows us to see the wind tower not as an exotic artifact from a distant land, but as a powerful testament to our collective ingenuity, a symbol of our enduring quest to build a comfortable world in harmony with the forces of nature. Yet for all their resilience against centuries of sun and sand, these ancient sentinels of sustainability now face a formidable array of modern threats. The relentless march of urbanization pushes cities outward and upward, with new concrete developments often viewing these low-rise, traditional structures as prime real estate to be cleared rather than priceless heritage to be protected. In some fast-growing cities, wind towers have been unceremoniously demolished to make way for shopping malls or apartment blocks, their cultural value deemed less important than immediate economic gain. This pressure is compounded by simple neglect. As families move into modern apartments with electrical cooling, the old family homes with their badgirs are often abandoned, left to the slow but certain decay caused by wind, rain, and the passage of time. The very materials that gave them strength, sun-dried mud brick and organic mortars, require constant, knowledgeable maintenance, and when that care stops, the structures begin a steady return to the earth from which they came. Perhaps the most insidious challenge comes from a changing global climate itself. The ancient builders who designed these towers operated with a deep understanding of their local weather patterns, the predictable direction of seasonal winds, the typical range of temperatures, and the cycles of rainfall. Climate change is now disrupting those very patterns, introducing unprecedented weather extremes that the original designs were never meant to withstand. In some regions, increased and more intense rainfall is eroding mud brick walls at an accelerated rate, while prolonged droughts can cause the earth foundations to crack and shift. Even the wind patterns themselves are becoming less predictable, potentially reducing the effectiveness of towers carefully aligned for winds that no longer blow as consistently as they once did. These climate-related threats represent a cruel irony. The very sustainable technology we need to learn from is being undermined by the environmental crisis it could help us solve. In the few places where these treasures are recognized and valued, restoration teams face a painstaking task that is as much about cultural revival as it is about construction. The city of Yazd, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, stands at the forefront of this battle. Here, conservators aren't just repairing bricks, they are trying to resurrect a dying craft. The specific mixture of clay, straw, and sand for the original mud bricks was a local recipe, perfected over generations and unique to each region. The precise technique for laying these bricks without modern cement, allowing the structure to breathe and flex, was a skill passed from master to apprentice. That chain of knowledge has been broken. Today, finding artisans who possess this traditional know-how is incredibly difficult, and training a new generation requires time and funding that is often in short supply. Each repair becomes a delicate archaeological puzzle, balancing the need for structural stability with a commitment to historical authenticity. The struggle extends beyond the physical work to the realms of economics and awareness. Conservation projects are chronically underfunded, often relying on international grants or passionate non-profit organizations rather than robust government support. For local communities grappling with economic challenges, preserving an old wind tower can understandably feel like a lower priority than creating jobs or building new infrastructure. The value of these structures isn't always obvious. Their benefits are cultural, historical, and environmental, long-term assets that are harder to quantify than immediate economic gains. This lack of widespread appreciation means that many magnificent wind towers continue to vanish, not out of malice, but simply from a lack of collective will and resources to save them. Yet, in the face of these daunting challenges, a global movement of preservation is growing, armed with both cutting-edge technology and a renewed respect for ancient wisdom. Organizations like UNESCO have been instrumental, not just by granting prestigious World Heritage status, but by providing frameworks and funding for detailed conservation management plans. Their work is being augmented by incredible technological tools. Teams now use high-resolution 3D laser scanning to create perfect digital records of existing wind towers, capturing every detail and dimension before they might be lost. These digital twins are invaluable. They can be used to plan precise restorations, create virtual experiences for global audiences, and even guide the fabrication of replacement parts if a structure is ever damaged. The most successful preservation efforts understand that technology alone is not enough. The heart of the work is community engagement. In places like Dubai's Bastakia Quarter and throughout Iran, local heritage groups are working tirelessly to reconnect people with this part of their identity. They host workshops where elders teach young people the basics of mud brick making. They organize school trips to functioning wind towers, and they help homeowners see the value, both cultural and economic, in preserving these features. This shift in perception is crucial. When a community begins to see its wind towers not as outdated relics but as unique symbols of its heritage and ingenuity, the will to protect them becomes unstoppable. This is about more than saving beautiful old buildings. It is about safeguarding a library of sustainable knowledge, written in clay and wind, whose lessons are more relevant today than they have been in over a century. Keeping these towers standing is an act of hope, a bet that the wisdom of the past will be essential for building a resilient future. The beautiful thing about these ancient cooling strategies is that you don't need to be a master mason or own a historic property to put them to work. The core principles that powered entire cities can be adapted on any scale, transforming a modern home into a more comfortable, efficient, and sustainable sanctuary. It all begins with a shift in perspective, from fighting the climate to working with it. Start by becoming an observer of your own environment. Notice where the sun hits your house at different times of the day. Feel where the cool breezes tend to come from in the evening, and identify which rooms become heat traps. This simple act of observation is the first step toward intelligent, passive design, just as it was for the ancient builders of old. One of the most effective and immediate changes you can make revolves around strategic ventilation. This is the art of moving air purposefully through your home, and it starts with something as simple as opening windows. But it's not just about opening any window, it's about creating a pressure differential. To achieve a powerful cross breeze, open windows on the windward side of your house and the leeward side. This setup creates a pathway for air to flow through, actively flushing out hot, stale air and replacing it with fresh, cooler air from outside. You can enhance this effect dramatically with a simple ceiling fan. By setting your fan to run counterclockwise in the summer, you force air downward, creating a wind chill effect that makes the room feel several degrees cooler. And here's a pro tip: reverse the direction to clockwise in the winter on a low setting. This will gently pull cool air up and recirculate the warm air that naturally rises to the ceiling, improving overall efficiency year-round. Another powerful principle to harness is thermal mass, which is the ability of materials to absorb and store heat. You can leverage this without any construction at all. During the day, when the sun is blazing, keep your blinds and curtains closed, especially on south and west-facing windows. This simple act prevents solar radiation from turning your interior into a greenhouse. The thermal mass inside your home, your furniture, your floor, even your bookshelves will then absorb the existing ambient heat, helping to stabilize the temperature. Then, as the evening cools down, throw those windows open wide. The cooler night air will flow in, and the thermal mass that warmed up during the day will now release its stored heat, effectively cooling itself down in preparation for the next day. It's a daily cycle of charging and discharging that costs absolutely nothing. For those willing to take on a small project, the options expand even further. Planting deciduous trees, those that lose their leaves in winter, on the sunniest side of your property is a fantastic long-term investment. In the summer, their full canopy provides deep, cooling shade, blocking a significant amount of solar heat gain. In the winter, after they shed their leaves, they allow the precious sunlight to stream through and passively warm your home. If you're in a dry climate, a small water feature like a fountain or a bird bath placed strategically near a window can work wonders. As the wind blows across the water's surface, it picks up moisture through evaporation, and this slightly cooled, humidified air can then be directed inside, mimicking the ancient Qanat system on a miniature scale. For a more direct approach, a simple DIY evaporative cooler, sometimes called a swamp cooler, can be built with a fan, a water pump, and a cooling pad, offering a highly efficient and low-energy way to chill a room or a patio. The resources to embark on these projects are more accessible than ever. A wealth of detailed tutorials exists online, from videos demonstrating how to build a solar chimney to guides on selecting the most effective shading plants for your specific region. Many communities now host workshops on sustainable living that teach these very skills, empowering homeowners to take control of their comfort in a way that aligns with the timeless wisdom of the past. By adopting even a few of these strategies, you're not just lowering your energy bills and your carbon footprint, you're reconnecting with a deeper understanding of your place in the natural world. You become an active participant in creating your comfort, rather than a passive consumer of electricity, tapping into an empowering tradition of innovation that is as relevant today as it was 1,000 years ago. What if a wind tower could think for itself? That's the question at the heart of the most exciting frontier in passive cooling design, where ancient architectural wisdom is merging with artificial intelligence to create buildings that breathe with a kind of intelligent consciousness. Imagine a modern badger, its vents no longer static openings but dynamic, adjustable louvers made from a sleek, smart material. Inside, a tiny, solar-powered sensor suite constantly monitors a stream of real-time data, wind speed and direction from an external weather vane, indoor and outdoor temperature and humidity readings, and even live air quality indexes tracking pollen or urban pollution levels. This data is fed into a simple, on-board AI algorithm that makes instantaneous decisions. If the wind shifts from north to west, the louvers silently pivot to capture it. If the outdoor air is thick with smog from afternoon traffic, the vents might temporarily close, relying on the building's thermal mass to maintain comfort until the air clears. This isn't science fiction. It's the logical evolution of the manual wooden louvers used centuries ago, now endowed with predictive power to optimize for comfort, health, and energy savings 24/7. The materials these future towers are built with are just as revolutionary. researchers are moving beyond traditional brick and wood to experiment with phase change materials, or PCM. These are remarkable substances that absorb and release large amounts of thermal energy as they change state, say from solid to liquid and back again. Picture the internal surfaces of a wind tower shaft lined with PCM panels. As warm daytime air passes over them, the heat is absorbed to melt the material inside the panels, effectively locking away that thermal energy and significantly cooling the air flowing into the building. Then, during the cooler night, the process reverses. The material solidifies, releasing its stored heat out through the tower's vents, ready to be recharged the next day. This acts like a thermal battery, smoothing out the peaks and valleys of daily temperature swings and providing a much more stable and consistent cooling effect than a traditional tower could ever achieve on its own. Couple this with solar-powered fans that provide a gentle boost to airflow on utterly still days, and you have a system that is both ancient in its principle and utterly futuristic in its execution. Perhaps the most ambitious vision is scaling this technology beyond the single building to the scale of an entire neighborhood. Urban planners and engineers are now designing net-zero energy communities where passive cooling is a foundational utility, not an afterthought. The concept involves creating a network of large, central wind catchment structures, modern versions of the caravanserai towers, that serve multiple buildings at once. These large-scale towers would draw in cool, clean air from a high altitude and funnel it through underground labyrinthine ducts, which use the Earth's constant temperature to pre-cool it further. This conditioned air could then be distributed to homes and offices through low-energy ductwork, providing the baseline cooling for an entire district. Any excess solar energy generated by rooftops in the community could power the small pumps and fans for this system, creating a truly closed-loop, resilient microclimate that would drastically reduce the community's reliance on the traditional power grid, especially during peak summer demand when blackouts are most common. Finally, the very way we construct these features is being transformed by modern manufacturing. The intricate geometric patterns of a mashrabiyah screen, which once required the skilled hands of a master woodworker, can now be designed computationally for optimal airflow and 3D printed using recycled polymers or even a bioplastic derived from algae. This allows for incredibly complex, efficient designs that would be nearly impossible to craft by hand, and it makes these beautiful, functional elements more affordable and accessible. Furthermore, companies are developing modular wind tower kits, prefabricated components that can be easily assembled on a rooftop without the need for specialized traditional craftsmanship. This plug-and-play approach has the potential to democratize passive cooling, allowing homeowners and builders anywhere in the world to add this proven technology to new constructions or retrofits with relative ease. This fusion of digital design and localized manufacturing is breaking down the final barriers, ensuring that the timeless intelligence of the Windcatcher can find a home on the rooftops of tomorrow, in forms our ancient engineers could scarcely have imagined but would undoubtedly admire. The true legacy of these wind-powered cities is not simply that they existed, but what they represent: a profound and enduring dialogue between human ambition and the natural world. These civilizations didn't just survive their environments, they learned to listen to them, to interpret the subtle language of the wind and the sun, and to build a response directly into their homes, their streets, and their very way of life. The wind tower stands as the ultimate symbol of this conversation, a permanent architectural acknowledgement that we are not separate from nature, but a part of it. This deep, symbiotic relationship allowed societies to plant the seeds of culture, commerce, and community in soil that would have otherwise been barren, creating vibrant oases of human achievement in landscapes defined by their austerity. The bustling bazaars of Yazd, the scholarly halls of Persian universities, the social rituals that unfolded in the cool shade of a stepwell, none of this would have been possible without the quiet, constant breath provided by these ingenious structures. This incredible history holds up a mirror to our own modern relationship with the planet, reflecting a dramatic and telling shift in values. For millennia, the guiding principle was harmony. Builders worked with the constraints of their climate, seeing environmental forces not as obstacles to be overcome, but as partners to be engaged. The decline of the wind tower, spurred by the Industrial Revolution, marks a pivot point in this story. It symbolizes a move away from that partnership and toward a philosophy of domination, a belief that with enough fossil fuel energy and technological muscle, we could bend any environment to our will, creating universal, artificial comfort anywhere on Earth. This shift brought undeniable convenience and control, but it also created a deep and damaging disconnect, insulating us from the natural consequences of our actions and fostering a reliance on brittle, energy-intensive systems. Our current era represents a third crucial chapter, the journey back toward balance. The rediscovery of these ancient technologies isn't about a nostalgic retreat to the past, it's a forward-looking synthesis. It is the recognition that our old philosophy of domination is unsustainable and that our path forward must involve relearning the art of collaboration. The wind tower's legacy, therefore, is its challenge to our very definition of progress. For over a century, progress has been measured in horsepower, processing speed, and energy consumption. This history asks us to consider a different metric: our resilience, adaptability, and intelligence. It forces us to ask whether the most advanced system is the one that consumes the most energy, or the one that uses none at all while providing the same essential service. In this light, the wind tower is not a primitive relic. It is a highly sophisticated piece of biotechnology, refined by centuries of real-world testing and iteration. This is why their story feels so urgently relevant today, as we stare down the twin crises of climate change and energy scarcity. We are not just in need of new technology, we are in need of a new mindset. The wind tower offers both. It provides a tangible, proven blueprint for low-carbon, climate-resilient living, but more importantly, it embodies a world we desperately need to reclaim. It is a testament to pre-industrial ingenuity that demonstrates a radical form of efficiency, one that creates abundance from scarcity and comfort from constraint. Their enduring presence on the skyline of desert cities is a permanent invitation to rethink, to innovate, and to find elegance in simplicity. They remind us that the solutions to our greatest challenges may not always lie in inventing something entirely new, but in having the wisdom to recognize the brilliance that has always been there, patiently waiting for us to rediscover it, carried on the same breeze that has cooled humanity for thousands of years. From the desert cities of Persia to the gleaming blueprints of modern sustainable design, the story of the wind tower stands as a breathtaking testament to pre-industrial ingenuity. It is a powerful narrative that dismantles a modern myth that comfort must come at the expense of our planet. For centuries, these elegant structures achieved a seamless harmony between human well-being and environmental balance, proving that true luxury is not measured in energy consumption, but in intelligent design. We have journeyed together through the intricate workings of the badger, felt the communal cool of the stepwell, and walked the cleverly planned streets of Yazd, uncovering how these innovations did far more than just lower the temperature. They purified the air people breathed, they structured the rhythm of daily life, and they became enduring symbols of cultural identity and artistic expression, leaving behind a legacy that is now experiencing a remarkable and urgent renaissance. The challenges we face today with global warming and soaring energy demands are not merely technical problems. They are a call to re-evaluate our entire relationship with the natural world. The relentless hum of air conditioning has become the soundtrack to a modern malaise, a symbol of our disconnection and our exhausting battle to dominate our climate. The silent, steadfast wind tower offers a different path forward. It whispers a lesson in humility and harmony, urging us to embrace passive, low-tech solutions that work in concert with nature's rhythms, not in opposition to them. This is not a call to abandon technology, but to elevate it by blending ancient wisdom with modern innovation, creating a future where our buildings breathe with the environment once more. Carrying this wisdom forward requires action on every level. We can champion the preservation of historic sites, ensuring these open-air textbooks of sustainable design are protected for future generations to study and admire. We can adopt green practices in our own homes, from strategic planting for shade to optimizing cross-ventilation, becoming active participants in our own comfort. And perhaps most importantly, we can advocate for climate-responsive design in our communities, supporting architects and planners who are brave enough to look backward for inspiration as they build our future. This is how we honor the legacy of those ancient engineers, not by simply remembering their work, but by continuing it. If this journey into the mysteries of the past has sparked your curiosity, we would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the forgotten innovations that shaped our world, and together let's keep this essential conversation and the life-giving wind